Welcome, everybody. This is a great opportunity for us to learn and to get together and get some great information. If you all don't know, I'm Bruce Rosenblatt from Senior Housing Solutions. I'm the owner of Senior Housing Solutions, and I do senior housing placement services. I have over 30 years experience, and I also try to be a resource for people. And so doing these webinars with local people, is a really great way for me to extend my resources to people and to help people. And so today we have Carol Fox from John R. Wood Realtor. I'll introduce her in a second. But each week we do these webinars. Next week we're going to be doing I have a person kind of talking about brain health. So that's going to be a really interesting webinar. The following week we have an attorney who's going to talk about all the important legal things we need to be doing. And the following week after that, I'm going to talk about the ABCs of CCRCs. So stay tuned for these different webinars. So it's great to have you all here today and hope everybody's well and safe. It's great to see that things are getting a little bit back to normal, but it's still, still very interesting out there. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Carol Fox. She is a certified luxury home marketing specialist and a $1 Million Guild member. She's fluent in English and French. For the last 20 years, Carol has helped buyers and sellers realize their real estate dreams in Naples by focusing on their goals and providing the highest level of ethical service. As a former corporate attorney, Carol brings an elevated acumen to contract negotiations, along with an organized execution of the steps that lead to a successful closing. She's originally from Tennessee, so you'll hear a little bit of her accent. She's also lived and worked abroad for several years in France and England, giving her unique ease with both local and international customers that effectively bring together buyers and sellers. Her personalized communication style, coupled with a strong commitment to integrity, has allowed Carol to consistently achieve top producer status with John R. Wood, as well as Gulf Shore Life's 5-star Best in Client Satisfaction Award. I've known Carol, I would say, good 10, 15 years. We've been good friends. We talk often, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Carol. I know she's been eagerly awaiting this webinar, and she's a lot of great information to share. So, welcome, Carol.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're well and that you're having a good week. I am not a public speaker, so I don't know if Bruce's characterization of me eagerly awaiting, but I have been looking forward to the opportunity, because this is an opportunity to get to speak to you, and I'm grateful for that. And I hope that, something I say today is helpful to you, is useful to you. Before we get started, I just wanted to say, if you look down at the bottom of your screen there, you'll see a little box, a little white square that's called chat. So as we go through this, if any questions pop up in your mind, things that you would like to have answered, just click on that little chat box and it will say, type your message here. And you just type in your question, and that way when we get to the end, Bruce will be able to read the questions out. He'll also unmute everybody so that you can ask your questions if you like at the end, but sometimes people just prefer not to be, I don't know what, on camera or whatever. So just type your question in, because I want to make sure that we try to get to your questions. So today I am going to address 3 topics, which I hope will be helpful. The first is what's going on in the market in Southwest Florida right now, and specifically, what effect has the COVID-19 pandemic had on our market here in Southwest Florida? The second question is, some people ask me, well, how in the world are you even doing business now with all the travel restrictions and the social distancing and all that? How is business being transacted? So I want to tell you about some of the exciting new tools that we're using to be able to get transactions done and get people closed these days. And finally, I'll give you a few tips for things that you may want to do and that you can do right now from your home to prepare yourself if you've been thinking that you might want to sell your home or move or buy something in the near future. So before we get started, let me share my screen here. I hope I'll be able to pull this up without too much trouble. Bear with me 1 second. Can you see the screen? Bruce? Can somebody wave their hand and tell me if they can see my screen?
Yes, I can, Carol.
Okay, thank you so much. So here we go. I'm gonna have to figure out how to hide the thumbnail video. I don't want to see myself while I'm showing this chart. Okay, this is the only chart that I'm going to show you today, but I think that it's a very good way of showing you, rather than just saying to you, oh, things are getting better, we're having more sales in Southwest Florida. I want to actually show you what's going on. So this chart was put together by our market research specialist at John R. Wood, a great guy, and he got all this information from the different multiple listing services, MLSs, in all of Southwest Florida. So this covers all of our markets from Marco through Naples, Bonita, Estero, Fort Myers, up to Cape Coral, okay? And you'll see up here at the top that says newly pended sales, 2020 versus 2019. And what pended sales means, those are contracts that have been written by buyers and have been negotiated and have been agreed. So these are not closed sales. It's not things that's actually, you know, gone to the attorney and closed in the last week, because we're looking week by week. The way you read this is down at the bottom, you'll see WE28. That means the week ending February 8th. And we come across here for each week in February along the bottom. We go through all the weeks in March, and then the weeks in April. And finally, over here on the right, you'll see week ending May 3rd. Now, the orange line here is represents what's going on in 2020. And the blue line is what happened in 2019. So just bear with me here for a second, because we won't spend a lot of time on this graph, but I think it's very encouraging. It's very positive what it shows. So you'll see that back in February, we actually were having more pended sales, meaning things going under contract. In the week of February 8th, for example, there were 900 properties that went under contract in Southwest Florida in 2020. You see with the red line, the orange line, as opposed to a year ago in 2019, that same week, only 689 did. So you see, we're coming across here in February, we were in a very strong position, even all the way back to November 2019. We went into this pandemic with our market in a very strong position, okay? That's important to note. Then you'll see as we get into the weeks in March, and particularly after about March 15th, new sales started to drop off. We came way down those next few weeks, and at the very bottom down there, we were at April 12th. I can't get my mouse across. Excuse me. Here we go. The week ending April 12th, we were actually 69% below in new sales what we had been in 2019 up here. We had 294 and as opposed to 937 for that same week a year ago. But the good news, as you'll see, is that that orange line is ticking up. Every week that's passed for the last 3 weeks, you know, that orange line is ticking up. The last couple of weeks there was a plateau, and you'll see here we're still 33% lower in terms of new contracts, new accepted contracts, than we were for that same week. This is the week ending May 3rd, excuse me, which was Sunday. We're still lower than we were a year ago, but considering that we've been through a pandemic and are still, you know, still dealing with all of that, it's pretty amazing to me that we're having this many new sales week by week. Now, of course, we don't know what, you know, what's going to happen, where that orange line is going to go the next few weeks. What we are seeing and what we're anticipating is that we're going to have a really busy summer and fall. And the reason I say that is because we think that there's a lot of pent-up demand, both from buyers who were, say, maybe in this area renting in January and February, and they were kind of ready to write a contract on something, and then, you know, the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden everybody was like, wait, what are we doing? We're not moving ahead with this. Not everybody, but some people. The other thing is we are anticipating that there are going to be a lot of buyers, particularly from cities that have been hard hit, who are saying, you know, I've been in my apartment or my condo for the last 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever, and I don't want to risk that ever happening again without me having a home in a place where I want to be. And that may well be Southwest Florida. So we are anticipating that a lot of those people from, say, New York, New Jersey, Chicago, you know, Boston, I don't know, Miami. I mean, we don't really know yet. I'm anticipating that we're going to get an influx of buyers from those places who want to be here if there's ever a repeat of this, if it comes back. So just a couple of other statistics, and I want to try to get my screen back up if I can figure out how to do this. I may not be able to do that. I minimized something and now I don't know how to maximize it. But in any event, we're also seeing that there not been significant price reductions, which you would think, well, maybe the people who've had their homes on the markets have really reduced the prices, but we're seeing a little bit of that, but not a lot of that, not as much for this particular time as we saw a year ago. As far as inventory of homes to buy, the inventory is pretty stable. You know, we have, as I just showed you, buyers coming in, and we have homes for sale. There are actually, in some neighborhoods right now, there's a little bit of a shortage of inventory. So just as an aside, if you've been thinking that you might want to put your home on the market, this would not necessarily be a bad time to put it on the market, because particularly if you're in a neighborhood where there's not very much on the market, if you go in now and you, along with your realtor, set a realistic listing price based on recent closed sales, those recent closed sales are going to have been from contracts, for the most part, that were written pre-pandemic. So, you know, it's a good time to at least consider putting your home on the market now, as opposed to waiting, say, a month or 2 months, when some of those sellers who perhaps pull their homes off the market when all of this started, when they start to put their homes back on the market, or new people decide to list their homes. So it's just something to consider, to talk to your realtor about. Okay, now, second question is, how in the world are we able to still have those sales that you just saw on the graph when there's social distancing in place, so many travel restrictions and things like that? Well, the answer to that is that right now we are having all these new tools that we're able to use, many of which are virtual, and that's why they call that, this next little slide is something called the virtual real estate process. And what that means is that a lot of what we're doing now is being done through the computer, through our phones, you know, through the internet, as opposed to in person. And what I mean by that is, for example, virtual appointments. Now, if someone wants to meet with me, we can meet in person if they like, but if they don't want to leave their homes or they don't want me to come into their home, we can set up virtual appointments, and you're able to do that same thing with somebody like Bruce, with your financial advisor, with your attorney. So, you know, these Zoom meetings have really, really made a difference in everybody's life. And of course, there are other platforms other than Zoom, but a lot of people are using Zoom, and I applaud you for learning how to use Zoom and being on this call today. We're also doing a lot of things like virtual property tours. If a buyer calls me and says, I'd like to see one of your listings, but you know, I'm in Cleveland, or I'm in you know, New York. How can we do that? Well, we set up a time. I go to the home and I can either shoot a video and email that to them, or we can FaceTime each other, or we can Zoom each other, and I can show the home that way. We're doing things now which we've never heard of before, called Facebook Live virtual open houses. And that means, and I have one coming up on my Facebook business page this Sunday, if you want to see what that means. I set a time, it's posted on my Facebook business page. People they don't attend the open house when I'm there, and I'm only there for 30 minutes, but it's just me, and I go through with my phone, and I show the house just as if there was somebody at this visually or actually at the open house, but they're not. They're just there virtually. But people can ask questions, and we interact that way. And what we try to do is use all these tools as well as floor plans and so forth. So if there is a buyer who is interested in a particular property, we're able to first use these tools to show them the property. And then if a buyer is very interested and is a serious buyer, and if the seller is comfortable having someone in their home for sale, then we go through a very specific protocol. First, we ask questions of either the buyer's agent to find out from the buyer, or the buyer themselves, questions like, you know, have you traveled recently? Have you been exposed to anybody who has the virus? Do you have a fever? Do you have flu-like symptoms? I mean, it sounds crazy, but we want to be so protective of our sellers, protective of ourselves, protected of the buyers and their realtors. So we go through that, and then if all of that seems okay and the seller is willing, then the rules are always that the buyer and the buyer's realtor have to wear a mask and gloves. We as a selling agent also wear masks and gloves if there's going to be an in-person showing. And we selling agents go ahead of time, of course, turn on the lights, open all the doors, open the closet doors, open the cabinets, or just a couple cabinets so that people can see in, so that when buyers are there, when the buyer's realtor is there, they don't need to touch anything. And that way, and then when the showing is over, we, the seller's agent, go and take disinfecting wipes and wipe whatever we've touched. So that's the safe way to do an in-person showing if sellers and buyers are comfortable with that right now. But as I say, we're relying on a lot of these virtual showings. And believe it or not, there are a number of buyers who are actually willing to write contracts on properties that they've never seen in person. It's not happening a lot, but it's happening. Then our contract negotiation is pretty much the same way we've done it all along. You know, a lot of that takes place over the phone, and, you know, between realtors and our clients. And then once we get a deal together, of course, both seller and buyer can sign documents electronically. We just zip that out to them. We've had those kinds of programs in place for years, and many of you, I'm sure, have signed documents electronically. If you haven't, let me assure you that if you are able to manage to get on a Zoom meeting, you can sign documents electronically. It's no more difficult than getting on a Zoom meeting. But in cases where we have sellers or buyers who are uncomfortable doing that, we are able to find other ways to either take the documents to them and get them signed, or meet them at the office, or, you know, there are other methods. Home inspections are still taking place. The only exception to that is that some of the, in some of the high rises, they have restricted outsiders, you know, anybody other than residents coming in. So, hey, Bruce, can you tell me if you can still hear me? I can't see anybody, so I want to make sure this is still on.
Yes, you're doing great.
Okay, thanks very much. So inspectors, of course, are taking safety precautions. They also wear masks and gloves and, you know, the whole bit. And they take pictures of anything they find that's a defective item, and they send the report, email the report to buyers. That's been going on. You know, that's the way we've done business, except for the mask and gloves for the past few years. So that hasn't changed. Appraisers, same thing. They can either get into the home using safety precautions, or they can do a drive-by appraisal. And then, believe it or not, all or almost all of the law firms, pardon me, one sec, and the title companies are still open and doing business. And they are able to, you know, get you to closing with documents that you can either sign electronically, as we discussed, or they have things, you can either go to their office, or they'll send somebody to you, or you can drive up. The legal assistant comes out to your car, you sign the documents, and that's that. So that's the way business is continuing to transact. Let me see. Let me see if I just want to look at my notes a minute. And yeah, one thing I would just say is that, you know, when all this started, thank goodness the governor of Florida decided that when he issued that executive order, he said that real estate businesses, just like many other businesses, were still considered essential businesses. And so that's how we've been able to continue to do business, but we did have to adapt our processes. And you know, and I've just kind of gone through that with some of the changes that we've made, primarily for safety reasons. You know, we just want everybody to be safe and to feel safe. And that's really why those changes have come about. And most of us believe that a lot of that is going to continue to go into the future. Even when, as we pull out of this pandemic, there are going to be a lot of buyers that are going to be shopping through virtual tours and little videos that we do. You know, so some of that's going to continue on beyond the virus. Okay, I think that's all of that. This next little slide, if you call it that, I don't think we even have slides anymore, but whatever this is something that John R. Wood put together called the Buyer's Guide to the Current Market. And I'm not going to take time to go over that right now, but Bruce is going to email all of this out to you. And if you have any questions about being a buyer in this market, don't hesitate to call me or email me. Now, the next topic is, what steps can you take right now as you're at home to get ready to sell your home or to buy a new home? There's so much that can be done by phone and by video conferencing, like Zoom meetings right now. So I'll take just a second, first of all, to say that I know I can speak for myself, and I think, you know, it's true for a lot of my friends and clients, people I've talked to, is that while we've been at home during this last 6-week period, or a month or 2 months, or, you know, however long you've been at home, I think it's made a lot of us rethink our priorities and think about, you know, are we actually living our lives the way we want to be living our lives? Are we living where we want to be living? For example, you may say, well, I'm living in Southwest Florida, but I've realized during all of this that I'd rather be living up north near my kids and my grandkids and be closer to them, or vice versa. You may want to, this may have made you decide that you want to go ahead and sell the home up north and just be here. I know a lot of people are saying or reflecting on, am I in the home that I want to be in? You know, if I'm in a condo now, do I want a larger space if this comes back around? Or, you know, do I want a single family home with a pool? I've heard people say that to me, you know, we got to get a pool. So we want to, we want to always have our own pool for the future, or vice versa. People may say, you know, I'm in a single family. I would rather be in a smaller place with a better view. Um, or people may say, you know, I've been thinking about going to a senior living community. I realized during this time that I would have felt better if I had somebody providing my meals while all this was going on, not having to worry about getting food into the house. So anyway, you may have had time to reflect upon this. So while you're in that reflective mode, or if you do start to think about, you know, maybe I want to buy or maybe I want to sell, here are a list of 5 professionals that you may want to consult, either by telephone or by Zoom calls or whatever, or in person, if you know, using safety precautions. First would be a senior housing specialist. I happen to know someone whom I can recommend very highly. His name is Bruce, and I'll be happy to send you his contact information. Second, you want to talk to your financial advisor. And I assume that, you know, most everybody has somebody, either a technical personal call financial advisor, or your banker, or your, you know, somebody who helps you with your finances, to really talk about what, you know, what you're able to do right now. For example, if you want to move to a new place, whether it's senior living or a different home, can you afford to go ahead and make that move before you sell and close on your current home? Some people can and some people can't. Some people want to go ahead and do that, and they're able to find ways of drawing money from their savings, or getting a bridge loan, or, you know, doing whatever to enable them to make that happen. I will say that I think, particularly during this time when safety is such a concern, for many people, if one can afford to go ahead and make that move, it just saves you a lot of hassle in terms of, you know, when we get back to in-person showings, or in-person, you know, open houses. You don't have to worry about cleaning your place up. You don't have to worry about stowing away all your personal items, your, you know, your kids' pictures and your grandkids' pictures and your medical equipment and your magazines and all of that. Your house can always look in showable condition. So it's just, I think it's just less stressful too for sellers, if they don't have to be thinking about, oh my gosh, you know, what time do we have to get out of the home for a showing? What time can we come back? Where are we going to take the dog? You know, it just makes it easier. So that's something that only you can decide along with your realtor, but it's at least something to consider. Of course, you'll want to talk to your attorney, your legal advisor. And I know Bruce said Ed Woolman will be coming to talk to us about a few points there. But one of the things you want to discuss is check to make sure that you have the legal capability, or see if you're the only person who has to sign a listing agreement with a realtor, or a sales agreement once you get a contract on your house, on your property. Sometimes things are in trust and there has to be another trustee who signs or whatever. You just want to make sure that you get all that kind of buttoned up, and you know where you are before you ever decide to list with a real estate company. Fourth, of course, you'll want to choose a realtor, and I'll give you a few tips in a second about how to find a realtor and what questions to ask. And finally, you may want to talk with a professional organizer or a stager. Now, that may be somebody that will be recommended to you by your realtor, but there also are plenty of good people out there who can help you. For example, I don't know if you were there. I know some of you were, for the, get Dorothy in here. Better late than never, Dorothy. We're welcome to you. professional organizer. Many of you may have been on this call, Bruce's call about 3 weeks ago when Marla Ottenstein, Naples' premier professional organizer, gave the talk, and she is great. She has been to my home, and I will just tell you, she is ruthless in terms of going through questions about, when was the last time you used this? And I'll say, oh, well, a couple of years ago. Well, okay, we need to either donate this or consign this or whatever. But the point is, when she got through with a couple of rooms in my house, it never had looked that tidy. And so I can highly recommend Marla. But there are other people, if you're getting ready to list your property, stagers whom your realtor recommends. I know that some of the senior housing communities also have stagers or moving professionals. I'm not sure exactly what they call them. Bruce will be able to answer that, but they're able to come into your home and help you decide which furniture you'll have room for in your new place, and which mover, they can arrange movers for you, and if there are things that need to be taken to consignment or to donate, they can arrange for that as well. So the bottom line of all this is that there are plenty of people who are able to help you through this. And now is the perfect time to just have phone conversations or Zoom meetings with some of those people and kind of gather the information before you make a decision about what you want to do. Okay, here are 5 tips for selecting a realtor. And you may say, first of all, I would suggest for most people, unless you just have a realtor who you love and you know that you want to list your property with that person, if you're going out and talking to new people, you may want to talk to 2 or 3 and kind of get 2 or 3 opinions about what the market is reflecting about a realistic price for your property right now. And also just get a feel for their personalities and figure out who you feel that you would be most comfortable working with. And you can always ask your financial advisor, you can ask your attorney for recommendations. There may be realtors who sold a lot of properties in your neighborhood whom you may want to talk to. And of course, I would be delighted to talk with you as well, and I would appreciate that opportunity. So here are some questions for anybody, any realtor that you talk to. Make sure, of course, that if your home is in Florida, make sure they're licensed in the state of Florida. It's kind of step 1. And talk to them about how much experience they have. I have 20 years of experience. There are a lot of people out here that have more experience, and some people who have fewer years, but who are also great realtors too. I don't think you necessarily want to hire your neighbor's grandson or granddaughter who just got their license last month. I mean, they may be lovely people, but in this market, it's better to have somebody who at least has, some experience under their belt, who is familiar with all of the contracts and has experience negotiating them. I just think experience is important, particularly at this period of time. You may want to choose a realtor from a large, reputable real estate office, simply because you're probably going to get more market visibility with a large company. Not necessarily, it's not always true, but it can be true. So just ask. I'll just put in a little plug for John R. Wood right now, which is the company I've been with since 2003. Most of you, or some of you may know, it's one of the largest in Southwest Florida. There are offices all over Southwest Florida. Certainly one of the most successful and most well-respected. And any of them, just a great company. So somebody to consider. Ask any realtor you talk to for a marketing plan. Make sure that they can tell you, or ideally have it on paper, exactly how they're going to market your property. And ask them, what new tools are they using now that they weren't using, say, 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, based on the environment that we're currently in. You want to make sure that somebody is marketing, currently using safety methods that are going to protect you and protect everybody. You want to ask them about their network of service professionals, because they will have people who can help you. They may work with stagers. I happen to work with a stager. I always give my sellers who sign a listing contract with me, a consultation with a professional stager who comes in and helps recommend things to us about, furniture, if there's too much furniture that may need to be removed, or things that need to be tidied up. Your realtor may also be able to recommend service professionals like painters or handymen or, attorneys. I mean, people that you may need to guide you through this process. So, and you may want to ask the realtor for references. I mean, of course, we're always going to give you the names of people, recent sellers of ours who were happy with the experience, but you can just always learn a little bit when you talk to somebody else about the realtor. So, and finally, this is the last slide, everybody. I hope nobody's asleep. I can't see anybody, so please. If you are getting your home ready to sell, here are just a few tips. On the exterior of your home, and even if you're in condo, that means front door, make sure that everything is painted neatly. Curb appeal is just critical. When a buyer and a buyer's realtor walk up to that front door, you want to make sure that it looks its best. Make sure that the doorbell is working. Make sure that if you have plants planted in a planter there by the front door, that they're alive. No dead plants at the front door or anywhere else, please. So that's kind of what we're looking for on the outside. On the inside, you want to make sure that your walls are clean and unmarked. If it's been a long time since you painted, either the realtor or the stager may suggest that you get a painter in there to throw a fresh coat of neutral paint on. Sometimes, that we ask that, other times we don't. I mean, it just depends. You want to make sure the windows are clean on the inside and out, that the kitchen and the bathrooms, particularly, that everything is caulked and everything looks good and tidy. And don't forget this last point, all clutter removed from closets, attic, garage, and any storage areas. And as we talked about earlier, there are professionals who can help you do that. So I think that's everything I have here. Let me just see if I left out anything.
So Carol, that was great. And I'm going to unmute everybody, but I do have a question for you before I do that.
And Bruce, before you do that, I've got to try to figure out here how I minimized everybody's faces, and I can't see anybody when I share my screen.
So you got to stop sharing your screen is what.
Okay. Well, let me just say this on this last page here, and Bruce will send this out to you. My contact information is there, my website, my email, and my telephone, and don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call me if you have a question. Okay, stop share. There we go. There you are.
So my question to you, Carol, is that, and maybe it's with the whole virus thing, maybe we got to kind of take that out of the mix, but with the seasonal market, where I see people in my neighborhood, they're packing up and they're heading back up north. Are people still in the market to buy homes during this time, or is there a slowdown because of the seasonality of everything?
That's a great question, Bruce. 1 second. Excuse me. First of all, when I got in the business 20 years ago, there definitely was a seasonal market. I mean, things just kind of closed down in the summertime, and we did not have very much business at all, particularly in August and September. With each year that's passed, as those of you who live here in this area can see, there are more and more people who are full-time residents. So every summer, for the last few summers, business has still been busy. It's not as if we typically, and I'm talking about pre-2020, we were still busy in the summers, not as busy as we were in, say, February, March, and April, but the seasonal market has gotten less and less, simply because there are more and more people in Southwest Florida who live here year-round. Now, this year, I think that even though some of our neighbors are now, going back up north, I think that we're going to have, as I expressed earlier, a lot of us are expecting pent-up demand. I think we're going to have a busier summer than we normally do. Now, I don't have a crystal ball, but both, I think those buyers, as I said, who were here maybe renting and were kind of ready to buy, but they hadn't fully made up their minds, and then they're, basically ready to have a home down here. I think those people are going to be back this summer. And I'm also hearing from some of my colleagues that some of those people are already back and they're looking, or they're at least, they're in contact with them up north. And the other thing is, I think, as I said earlier, that we're going to have this influx of buyers who have been cooped up in cities and who are going to say, you know what, I want to get a place in Southwest Florida in the event. I don't want to risk that if we have to, go back into a safe at home mode at some point, that we don't have a place. So I don't think the summer is going to be such a big deterrent.
Yeah, and I can tell you that I've had some of my clients that thought that it would take a long time to sell their home, and all of a sudden they've sold and they got an offer and they have to be out in 30 days. And, so definitely there's a lot of activity that's occurring. So I'm going to unmute everybody. People can ask questions if they want to ask questions. Anybody have a question, just shoot it out to Carol.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Lawrence D.
So Carol, do you think that, I know that you said there's not as many homes on the market. Do you think with the pent up demand, there will be more homes that go on the market? Or do you think people will wait?
Becky, I think it's a combination. Thank you for that question. What we've seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks is a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot. We've seen a number of new listings. I think that now that both buyers are a little bit more comfortable and they see that there are sales taking place, that some buyers who had not had their homes on the market are saying, you know what, I'm going to put mine on now, because I think this could be a good time to sell. And I think that some of those sellers who had withdrawn their homes from the market back in late March or early April, who just said, look, I just don't want, I don't want people in my home right now. I'm living here and I'm just going to pull it off the market until I see. Some of those people are putting their homes back on the market now. So I think that we are going to see, and we're in a nice balanced market. It's not, I didn't mean to say that we don't have inventory. We do have homes on the market, but I'm just saying in certain neighborhoods, we don't have maybe as many as we would normally expect or whatever. But I think we're going to see more and more new listings over the month of May. I really do.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Becky.
We'll be talking to Becky next Thursday.
Yeah.
Oh, is Becky our speaker next Thursday?
Yes.
I am.
Fantastic. I'm so looking forward to that. Bruce, do you want to tell everybody again? Because I think that was kind of early on. He was telling us what you're going to speak about.
Well, Becky, why don't you talk about it?
So I'm going to speak about brain health and my experiences from my husband, who actually had a stroke about 24 years ago. And 20 years ago, everything was great. And then 20 years ago, he lost his memory. And how we learned how to restore it. I ended up partnering with a doctor, and she and I worked together and really helped people recognize that memory loss is not an early warning sign. There's many early warning signs, and knowing those could actually either prevent or at least make it go a little longer before you might experience memory deterioration. So that's what I'm going to talk about.
Very interesting. I'm looking forward to that, Becky.
Me too. Thank you.
Hey, Bruce, did we have any questions come in over the chat box? I can't see it.
No, I think we're good.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everybody so much for your time. It's really been a pleasure to be with you this morning. And as I say, if you have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to give me a call. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Carol, very much. It's great having you, and everybody be safe out there. And if you have any questions about senior housing, or if you have any friends that have some questions about senior housing, please think of me. Please have them reach out to me. There's still, now is a really good time to be thinking about planning ahead. So please reach out to me. So everybody take care and be well, be safe, and we'll see you next week.
Bruce,
Thanks.
Everybody.
Bruce,
Yes,
can you hear me?
yes, I can.
Oh, okay. I believe the lady in the middle, Royberg, has a question.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. So I
Okay.
just ask it, Bruce?
Yes, yes.
I think other people may have the same question. A lot of us have been buying long-term care insurance or thinking about various types of continuing care or just independent senior housing solutions, and are starting to have second thoughts about all of that because of the concerns we have about the spread of a virus or lockdowns where you can't use the amenities you're paying for and things like that. Can you comment on any of that, or would you
Sure.
rather go at a different time?
No, we can talk about it, and we can definitely be talking about it, in a couple of weeks during my presentation.
Yeah.
The senior living communities, and I think it's a legitimate concern, but the senior living communities are going through extraordinary safety measures. And we read about the press, and we're in the newspaper and in the television, we hear about like the deaths in long-term care facilities, and that's really more in nursing homes. So it's really not impacting the independent living side or even the assisted living side. So these communities are going through extraordinary steps of safety steps. There are some places that are actually doing testing immediately. When a person does move to a community, there's a 14-day quarantine that they go through. So there are, there's dining services. They're doing some types of programming. But yes, it is a little different right now. But you compare that to living in your home, and you're still vulnerable in your home. And so, you could have a workman coming to your house that may not have been tested, may not have gone through, the procedures as compared to a senior living community. So, I would say, it's a legitimate concern, but I think if you really talk to the different senior living communities, and you talk to them about the different steps that they're taking, you talk about the different instances that they've had, I think you'll find that these communities are very, very safe. So,
But
we'll talk
I
more
have-
about that.
I have two friends in Chicago who are in independent living situations, both of which they loved until this hit. And they're both locked in their small apartments. They don't get to take advantage. And this is a safety precaution. I'm not faulting anybody, but they don't have the ability to use the exercise activities or the entertainment activities or the dining activities or the transportation help. And it's something to think about, especially if you're investing a lot of money and moving into something like that. Could you handle?
It is, and I think what you should do is, each specific community, you should talk to them and see what they're doing and how, what kind of, how are the residents being cared for, and what is being done at that specific community. And so, they should be able to share with that. I think comparing something in Chicago versus something in Florida, obviously the restrictions are much different. I just had a situation where I had a client or a lady who has her mom up in New York, and the mom is unfortunately under hospice, and the facility said you could not visit her mom, and so I was able to help her, and she is now, because she's under hospice, they allow her to go visit her, and so it's a different time, and so what I would do is I would talk to the different communities and find out exactly what they're doing. They also can share with you the number of instances that they have there, which I think is a very critical thing. I keep statistics on all the different communities about how many people have been infected. But again, the statistics are a little misleading because it doesn't tell you if they are residents or if they're staff members. And so, you just don't know that. I also, I think about home care, and that's also impacting, it's been impacted as well, because a lot of the people who are getting home care, that aide or that nurse is not just seeing one person, they're seeing multiple people, and then they're going home and they're, with their families, and then they come back. So it is something to consider even with home care. So nothing's going to be perfect right now, but I think, again, talk to the different communities, see what they're doing, and see, kind of separate fact from fiction.
And
So,
Bruce, I have a
yeah.
question. Do you
Go
think,
ahead.
I wonder, it's still so it's new, right? And it's still probably going to change. So even what they think now may morph into something else, right? There's still a lot of unknown. Is that correct? Am I thinking right? Or do you think it'll get stricter or not? I mean, what do you think
I think
about the
it's probably
future?
going to lessen. I don't think it's going to
Lessen.
be, I think I think the issues are going to be mitigated more. So I don't think it's become stricter. I think it's going to become less strict.
I wonder, because I think it's reactive, right? So it's so hard to tell. You just don't know what it's ultimately going to settle into.
Well, and you have, people living at these communities, and you have family members wanting to see their loved ones, and they're not able to. And so, I think that's probably going to be the first restriction that's going to lessen, because, you want to see your mom or your dad or your parents. And so that, that's a hard thing for people to adjust to without, so I think that if I see anything, that's probably going to be the first thing that's going to occur. I also think, within this industry, I think our industry is going to change a little bit, because, some of the smaller mom and pop, different senior living communities, they may not make it. And so I think you're going to see some of these communities probably being purchased by bigger providers. So I do think there's going to be a change within our industry.
Right. Technology too. Hopefully they'll add some technology, because not being able to go see them, there's still opportunities to communicate.
Yeah, but
Right.
you want
Not available.
to see. There's nothing like, and it's hard, because like I there's nothing like a hug, or seeing
Right.
mom and wanting to hug her, and it's tough.
It's terrible. Yeah.
So everybody, thank you for being part of this, and feel free to give me a call, and we can talk in more detail. It's great to have everybody part of this. I'm glad everybody's staying well and safe. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce,
Take
so
care,
much for doing
everybody.
this. Take care.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Carol.
Look forward to
Bye.
next
Thank
week,
you.
Becky.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks for today. It was great.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.